Respected Dharma Master, fellow practitioners and guests, Amitabha. We read in the sutras how one year a conflict arose between two monks. It was a relatively small event that triggered it, but gradually it split them and their fellow monks into two main groups. A smaller third group watched what was happening but did not take sides. Members of each group were convinced that they were right and the other group was wrong. As the situation worsened, the two groups even began to practice separately. Growing increasingly concerned with the group conflict, some of the monks who had not taken sides went to the Buddha, who was nearby, and told him what was happening. He spoke to both groups and encouraged them to resume practicing harmoniously, to not be attached to their own viewpoints, and to try to understand those of others. But the situation continued to deteriorate. The Buddha was again asked to please try to reconcile the two opposing groups of monks. He went to the monastery and for a second time spoke of the need for peace and unity within the Buddhist community. One monk stood up and requested the Buddha to please return to his meditation, saying that they would resolve the situation themselves. Once more, the Buddha asked the monks to stop fighting and to return to harmony. The same monk repeated what he had said, and in so doing rejected the Buddha's guidance. The Buddha then told the monks about a series of events that had taken place a long time ago. King Brahmadatta ruled a large kingdom and commanded a strong army. King Dijiti, who ruled a smaller kingdom, had heard that Brahmadatta was about to invade his kingdom. Knowing he could never defeat King Brahmadatta's army, and that many of his soldiers would lose their lives in a futile battle, King Dijiti felt it would be best if he and his queen fled. So they left and went into hiding in another city. A short time later, the queen gave birth to Prince Dagavu. After the prince was older, King Dijiti began to fear what would happen if King Brahmadatta found all three of them together. As a result, arrangements were made for the prince to live elsewhere. One day, the king and queen were recognized, captured, and taken to be executed. By chance, Prince Dagavu was on his way to see his parents, whom he had not seen in a long time. He was about to rush to them when his father cried out, "Do not, my dear Dagavu, be far-sighted. Do not be nearsighted. For vengeance is not settled through vengeance. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance." The king repeated his warning 2 more times, adding that he was not deranged and that those with heart would understand. None of the villagers knew who Dagavo was or what the king was talking about. Heeding his father's warning, Dagavo managed to restrain himself. He watched his parents being executed and dismembered. That night, he bought wine and gave it to the guards, who soon became drunk. He then made a funeral pyre, gathered his parents' remains, placed them on the pyre, and set fire to it. After paying his final respects to his parents, he went into the forest to mourn their loss, to mourn their death. A while later, after coming out of hiding, Dagavo managed to obtain a job as an apprentice in an elephant stable next to the palace. When King Brahmadatta heard Dagavo singing and playing a lute, he was moved by the sound and arranged for Dagavo to go to work in the palace. Serving the king and always trying to please him, Dagavo gradually won the king's trust. One day, while King Brahmadatta was out hunting, Dagavo, who was driving the king's chariot, deliberately drove it away from the rest of the hunting party. Not long after, the king said he wished to take a nap, and using Dagavo's lap as a pillow, he went to sleep. Dagavo's moment of revenge had come. He took out his sword, but suddenly his father's words came back to him, and he put his sword away. A second time, he drew and then sheathed his sword. After Dagavo had drawn his sword for the third time, his father's words, simple and gentle, hit home. They touched Dagavo's sorrowing heart that was full of hatred and consumed by the desire for revenge. His heart knew the truth of his father's words and understood their import. Heeding his father's words, Dagavo awakened at last to the compassion and wisdom in that self-same heart. He was able to put away not only his sword, but his hatred and his desire for vengeance as well. Suddenly, the king awoke in great alarm. He told Dagavo that he had dreamed that Prince Dagavo was about to kill him. Instinctively, Dagavo drew his sword yet again and announced that he was Prince Dagavo. The king then begged Dagavo not to kill him. With his hatred and vengeance having been overwhelmed by his compassion and wisdom, Dagavo was able to put away his sword and in turn begged the king's forgiveness. The king and the prince spared each other's lives, and each vowed never to harm the other. They then returned to the castle. Once there, The king asked his ministers what they would do if they found Prince Dagavo. After hearing their brutal descriptions of what they would do, the king told them of what had just transpired. He then turned to Dagavo and asked the meaning of his father's last words. Dagavo explained that "do not be far-sighted" meant that one should not hold on to a wish for retaliation for a long time. "Do not be nearsighted" meant one should not readily break one's friendship with another. For vengeance is not settled through vengeance. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance. Enabled Dagavo to realize that if he sought revenge for the deaths of his parents by killing the king's supporters would retaliate by killing him. Then Dagavo's supporters would in turn kill the king's supporters. This is why vengeance never ends through vengeance. In sparing each other's lives, both the king and the prince ended vengeance by letting go of it. Dagavo's father had first told Dagavo, "Do not be far-sighted," which meant not to hold on to the wish for vengeance. Previously, we learned how the Buddha had told the monastics on several occasions that they should always train themselves as follows. Our minds will be unaffected, and we will say no evil words. We will remain sympathetic to that other person's welfare with a mind of goodwill and with no inner hate. We will keep pervading him with an awareness imbued with goodwill. And beginning with him, we will keep pervading the all-encompassing world with an awareness imbued with goodwill, abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. If we give in to anger, our mind will be shaken and moved from its naturally clear, tranquil state. If we hold on to our wish for vengeance, we harbor evil words as well as a mind of hatred and bitterness. Then this mind will have no room for empathy or goodwill. If anyone had a right to feel hatred and fear, surely it was King Dajiti. And yet, in a truly terrifying situation, his overriding thought was to protect his son. He did not cry out for his son to save him and his queen, or for Dagavo to save his own life by fleeing, but instead spoke to his son's heart and told him not to come forward. He then warned Dagavo not to hold on to resentment, not to readily destroy a friendship, and not to seek revenge. The king had the presence of mind to know in an instant just the precise words to strike the right chord in the heart of his son, whom he had not seen for several years. Imagine the level of restraint required to focus the mind and eliminate fear to be able to speak wisely out of love and empathy instead of anger and fear. Imagine the dignity it took to remain calm. How many of us today have even a fraction of such restraint and dignity? Forget about these virtues in the face of a horrific experience. How often do we practice restraint in our daily lives? How dignified are we in our demeanor and behavior? Behind me is the image of a Buddha, an awakened being. What qualities does this image bring to mind? Restraint and dignity, patience and compassion, contentment and great ease. These are the qualities we need to uncover within ourselves if we are to, like him, awaken. But our lives today are so frantic. We have so much to do. We rush from one task to another. In the United States, we even have a term for it, multitasking. As we are talking on our mobile phones while eating our lunch and following the spoken directions from our satellite navigation systems as we drive to our next appointment. With all this going on, we must be very important people. It is so easy to be seduced by current ideas of what a successful person is. We have seriously strayed from our inner virtues. We practice little restraint. We exhibit little dignity. We are hurting ourselves. And even worse, we are causing great harm to our children. We are setting them on a path that will lead them even farther away from their innate goodness and virtues. Instead of passing on our bad habits of self-indulgence and instant gratification to our children, we need to teach them what is important in life, how to become truly contented and caring people. Contented, caring people have no room for craving or hatred in their hearts. Such people have no room for thoughts of retaliation in their minds. Such people are worthy of the respect and trust of others. Such people are at ease with life. And when sad or even terrible things happen, they are not overcome by fear or sorrow. They are able to control their fear and transform it into love. They know the futility of doing otherwise. They know the great harm they can do to those they love more than life itself. Contented and caring people are able to think not what they themselves want, but what others need. Placing those needs above personal desires, such virtuous people are able to think and react with restraint and dignity. They are able to give wisely to others what will truly benefit them. In the account of Dagavo, his father, the king, had given his son 2 wonderful gifts: insight and life itself. Through his words and his actions, with dignity and restraint, he was able to send his son a powerful message that enabled him to overcome the desire for revenge. The king taught Dagavo that one should not hold on to, but should let go of bitterness and hatred. Fortunately, most of us are not faced with such horrific experiences. Yes, we have arguments with family members and friends, and we often find ourselves having to interact with people we do not like. But as disagreeable as these occurrences are, they are certainly not life-threatening. And yet, when we encounter frustrating or trying situations, how many of us are able to remain calm and to respond with wisdom? How many of us have instead complained to all who would listen or grumbled to ourselves? How often have our minds been shaken from their clear, tranquil state? How often do we use evil words that are harsh or false? How often do we hold on to our anger and then nurture that anger with our thoughts? As Dagavo's father said, do not hold on to the wish for revenge. We can choose to wrap ourselves in our resentment and bitterness, and in so doing, reject peace and happiness. The results of this type of reaction can be viewed daily in the newspapers and on the news on television. Or we can choose to broaden the scope of our compassion and wish for an end to the suffering of all beings. We can choose to create peace within ourselves, and in this way, bring peace to others. Next, the king told his son, do not be nearsighted, which meant not to readily break a friendship. The about-to-be executed king had wanted his son to understand the value of friendship and trust. To have friendship with others, we need to have trust in others and to be trustworthy ourselves. Realizing that Dagavo was about to kill him, King Brahmadatta knelt down and begged Dagavo to spare his life. We could say that since Dagavo was about to kill the king, this was more likely an act of fear and bitterness. an act of desperation, not one of trust. In our trust, we need to be sincere. It was the prince's sincerity that so moved the king. So often, when we do something, we do so with hesitation and doubt. This doubt may well prevent us from doing what we know to be right. Or our motives for doing something may well be selfish. Dagavu's were not. He wanted to honor his father's words and not carry hatred and bitterness in his heart. His wish to do so was so strong that he was willing to sacrifice his own life to let go of hatred and the wish for revenge. This was not easy for him to do. He had to struggle with himself. He pulled out his sword 3 times to kill the king. But in his heart, he knew the truth of his father's words. And in the end, he was able to lay aside his wish for revenge to comply with those words and to put away his sword. So often, we act out of self-interest, unwilling even to sacrifice our pride, much less our lives. In our struggle with our conscience, we have doubts. And like Dagavu, we also hesitate. Thoughts that we are right and that we know what will make us happy and bring us what we desire keep bubbling up from inside us. Unlike Dagavu, in the really important matters, we so often fall short of acting on what we sense to be right. We do so not because we are bad people. We do so because we are careless and because we have gotten into the habit of giving ourselves excuses not to do what is right. We tell ourselves that we deserve to feel the way that we do. And so, with hesitation and doubt, we may not do what we know we should. And even if we do what we know to be right, the hesitation is still there. And this hesitation will be apparent to all those around us. But if we can completely overcome this negative, selfish inclination and wholeheartedly do what we know to be right, our sincerity will shine through. And thus, if we are sincere, truly sincere, we will touch others. And if we trust others with such palpable sincerity that they are able to feel it, then we ourselves will be deemed trustworthy and honorable. Dagavu's father's last words to him were that vengeance is not settled through vengeance. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance. Seeking revenge never ends hatred, but enables it to grow. Dagavo explained that if he had sought revenge by killing the king's supporters would in turn seek revenge by killing him. Then his own supporters would retaliate by killing those of the king, and on and on and on. This cycle of killing would continue. If, however, the prince and the king spared each other's lives, the hatred would end then and there, for it had been allowed to die out. Hatred is a fire that, if left unchecked, will consume all those it touches. Adding fuel to a fire only increases it. Not supplying the fuel will cause the fire to gradually burn out. If we keep fueling the fire of anger and hatred with thoughts of self-justification and self-benefit, of bitterness and resentment, we will never let go of our anger. Eventually, it will consume and destroy us all. For those who are surrounded by fire will inevitably be burned. Dagavo's father had enabled his love and concern for his son to overcome any anger or hatred he might have felt for King Brahmadatta or his soldiers. Dagavo, too, was able to let go of his hatred for a conqueror who had ordered the murder and dismemberment of Dagavo's parents while he had to look on helplessly. We, on the other hand, have great difficulty letting go of anger for those who keep us from doing what we wish to, who inconvenience us, or simply annoy us. We hold on to the slights of others and dream of showing them how clever we are at retaliating. Do not, my dear Dagavo, be far-sighted. Do not be nearsighted. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance, never through vengeance. Do not wish for revenge. Be trustworthy, and do not readily break a friendship. End hatred and find peace by letting go of pain and bitterness. The few words spoken by Dagavo's father, despite their simplicity and gentleness, succeeded in touching a heart that had been overcome with sorrow and consumed with the wish to revenge for vengeance, and thereby awakening the compassion and wisdom extant in that self-same heart. This very wisdom and compassion was what Dagavo awakened to. As the Buddha said, we should train ourselves so that our minds remain unaffected by pleasant or adverse circumstances, and our speech is always benevolent. Our mind should be without hatred, as we keep pervading the universe with a goodwill that is abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. We should also keep pervading the universe with an awareness imbued with compassion, gratitude, and equanimity, all of which are also abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility and ill will. The Buddha spoke first of goodwill, which is a benevolent interest or concern. It is the wish that all beings may be well and secure, that they may be happy. With goodwill, we will act purely and without any personal agenda or selfish motives. We happily forego our personal desires and instead focus on the needs of others. Listening carefully to them will enable us to understand what they are feeling and thinking, their wants, their needs, and their aspirations. If we are wrapped up in thoughts of what we ourselves have done or wish to do, our thoughts will be of what was or what might be, not what is. If we are wrapped up in thoughts of self-benefit and ego, our thoughts will be of ourselves, not of others. So we need to let go of thoughts of self. We need to broaden our minds to focus on others. And to do this, we need a mind and heart of compassion. Compassion is the intention and ability to lessen and ultimately transform suffering. When we adopt an awareness imbued with compassion, we seek to ease others' pain. But in our wish to help, more often than not, we react emotionally and end up getting carried away by our feelings. At times, we empathize so completely with what someone is going through that we subject ourselves to the same distress. So instead of one person suffering, there are now two people who are suffering. Instead of reacting emotionally, we need to learn to temper our compassion with wisdom. Then we will know better how to help another. We will also realize that an individual's circumstances are the result of past karmas. Therefore, it may well be next to impossible for us to improve another's situation. This realization does not mean we should stop caring about others or dismiss their difficulties as being their own fault. It means that our wanting to alleviate their suffering may instead be a benefit to them in the future in ways we cannot foresee. So be compassionate, but do not focus on getting immediate positive results. Do not get wrapped up in egoistic thoughts thinking, I can fix the problem. Without such expectations, we will not be disappointed or saddened when our attempts at helping fail, or worse, aggravate the situation. We will not know how best to help if we fail to temper our compassion with wisdom. The person we want to help may not have the requisite conditions for us to do so. When we stop focusing on immediate results and instead focus on just helping others, our compassion will ultimately be of benefit to others. By planting the seeds of compassion, the wish for all beings to be happy and free of suffering, we can be confident that we have indeed helped others. If we feel compassion, however, for only certain people, then our compassion is limited, and thus our ability to lessen suffering in the future will likewise be limited. But when our compassion for all beings is equal and unconditional, then our compassion will be immeasurable and impartial. When we accomplish this, we will pervade all directions with an awareness imbued with equanimity. In the Western Pure Land of Amitabha Buddha, there are uncountable bodhisattvas, beings who are dedicated to helping all others end suffering. Widely known in this world, and often depicted standing to Amitabha's left, is Avalokiteshvara, or Guanyin Bodhisattva. Avalokiteshvara is often translated as Great Compassion Bodhisattva, or she who hears the cries of the world. A very long time ago, Avalokiteshvara vowed that if she ever became disheartened in saving sentient beings, may her body shatter into 1,000 pieces. Once, after liberating countless beings from the hell realms by teaching them the Dharma, she looked back down into the hell realms again. To her horror, she saw that the hell realms were quickly filling up again. In a fleeting moment of despair, she felt profound grief. And in that moment, in accordance with her vow, her body shattered into 1,000 pieces. She beseeched the Buddhas to come and help, and many did. Like a fall of snowflakes, they came. One of those Buddhas was Amitabha. He and the other Buddhas helped to reform her body into one that had 1,000 arms and hands, with an eye of wisdom in each hand. In this way, she could better help all beings. Whether you view this as a true account or as a legend, there is a very important lesson here that can help us in our practice of compassion. When we first develop the Bodhi mind, the mind set on helping all others attain enlightenment, ourselves included, we will experience times when we are disheartened. At this point, we have two choices: going forward or giving up. To go forward, we need to reestablish our confidence. We may do this under the guidance of a good teacher, through the support of a good spiritual friend, or through other means. If we do not go forward, we will fall back into ignorance and delusion. It will help us at these difficult times to remember that we do not grow spiritually in good times, when everything is going our way. We grow spiritually and progress on the path to awakening in times of adversity. Just as steel is tempered by fire, our resolve is strengthened by hardship. Avalokiteshvara was shattered in a fleeting moment of despair. But through the strength of her aspiration to help all beings, she touched the hearts of those who had gone before her on the path. Due to her great vow and profound sincerity, she had created the causes for many Buddhas to help her when she was momentarily overwhelmed by the enormity of her chosen task. We too will encounter obstacles. When we do, our aspiration to help all beings will enable us to receive the help we need to move back on the path. Due to the depth of her vow to help, Avalokiteshvara regarded all beings with equanimity. In this story I have just told, in addition to the hell realms, she also went to the ghost, human, demigod, heavenly realms, and animal realms, teaching all those who had the affinity to learn from her. Each being was equally important, and so she taught each one as best she could. She did not discriminate. She was not judgmental. She tirelessly and vigilantly listened for cries for help and found the beings who were suffering. She then taught them so they were able to advance on the path to awakening. With similar equanimity, we too will view everything equally and in a balanced way. Often, when we try to help others, we act impulsively and erratically, not wisely. We rush in to help one day, and then want to give up the next. Without a pure, calm mind, we can lose our balance and fall from great enthusiasm to mind-numbing discouragement. Only when our minds are calm will we know how to truly benefit others. The Buddha told an account of how a father saved his children from a burning building. Some children were playing inside a very large old house. They were so engrossed in their play, they did not realize the house was on fire. Their father called out frantically for them to leave the house, but unable to hear him, they continued playing. Luckily, he had the presence of mind to call out to the children that outside the house there were newly arrived carts, something the children had been looking forward to. On hearing that the carts had arrived, they rushed out of the house to see them, and in so doing were saved from the fire. On a very basic level, this story shows how by using our calm, clear mind, we can more effectively determine the best way to help others. By running into the house, the father would have perished in the fire along with his children. By remaining calm, he acted wisely and was able to save them. In our practice of compassion and equanimity, we also need patience. Patience is one of the virtues that bodhisattvas practice to perfection. Avalokiteshvara needed great patience to teach all the beings, and then even greater patience to continue helping them after that moment of despair. The father needed patience to hold himself back from a foolish act. We too need patience to be compassionate and to regard all with equality. We need patience to help us get through emotional and physical obstacles when we are trying to help others. There will always be obstacles. Just because we are trying to help does not guarantee that all obstacles will fall away and everything will be resolved to our satisfaction. Remember, we cannot overcome other people's karmas and the ensuing retributions. Without patience, we will be mired in the quagmire of our own disappointment. Also, without patience, we will give up when criticized and obstructed by those who do not understand what we are trying to do. Just as we sincerely believe that we have wisely found the way to help, others will likewise be certain that they too have found the right solution. If we are prepared for this and do not allow it to disturb our serenity, we will not be shaken from our pure, calm mind. As we encounter criticism and obstacles that seem overwhelming, we will need patience everything changes. Good and bad, pleasant and unpleasant, favorable and unfavorable. Remember that just as good times do not last, bad times will also change and improve. Although our current conditions may seem overwhelmingly distressing, even these difficulties will someday end. If we can manage to hold on to this thought, we will find a patience within us to persevere, to hold on until our unfavorable conditions begin to ease. This turnaround will happen more quickly if we can manage to let go of our thoughts of our own discomfort and disappointment. Think instead of how to end the distress of others. The sooner their distress ends, the sooner ours will end. For the pain of others is our pain as well. We are all one, all interconnected with one another. Do not get sidetracked by thinking that the concerns of another are trivial. For to that person, those concerns are all-consuming and very important. How we feel about the validity of their concerns is unimportant. We should put personal judgments aside and instead focus on trying to alleviate their distress and unhappiness, which to them is very real. How can others be happy? In the same way that we become happy, by leaving negative emotions behind. If we can show others how to be less engrossed in their emotional reactions, we will help them to begin to react more from reasoning. If we can help them to see that the underlying causes of unhappiness are attachment and aversion, we will have helped end someone's pain. By letting go of craving and aversion, one will realize that the cause of happiness is goodwill, compassion, and equanimity. There are some things in life that we can change. It is our responsibility to try to alter them for the better. But sometime, we will not be able to affect any change. If we can move from our personal sense of sorrow or regret over not being able to help directly, the gentle happiness that arises from our wish to help will still bring relief to others. Be happy helping, and be content knowing that sometimes all we can do is to wish for others to be happy as well. Finally, the Buddha spoke of appreciation or gratitude. Unfortunately, so often today, we forget about feeling grateful. When things go our way and we receive what we desire, we congratulate ourselves and all too easily slip into arrogance. We forget about all those who helped us to get where we are and to enjoy what we have. Alternatively, when we do not receive what we desire, we blame others. We forget that what we receive in life is due to our own causes and conditions, our own merits or lack of merits. But arrogance and blaming others are both afflictions and thus obstacles to our progress on the path to awakening. If instead we can feel gratitude for all the help that we have received from others, we will in turn become naturally inclined to want to share what we have with others. To do this, we dedicate our merits, the goodness we have created every day, to 4 benefactors. In our dedication of merit, we begin. May the merits and virtues accrued from this work adorn the Buddha's Pure Land and repay the 4 kindnesses above. These 4 are the 3 jewels, our parents, our teachers, and all beings. The 3 jewels are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. They are called jewels because they are of immeasurable value. All Buddhas strive to teach us universal truths that will enable us to awaken so we may escape suffering and attain lasting liberation and happiness, and also uncover the true nature within each of us. Their determination to help us, as well as their patience in teaching us, is infinite. While our love for others is transitory, the Buddha's love for all beings is endless. Our love is conditional and discriminatory. But the Buddha's love is impartial and held equally for all beings. Buddhas help us by teaching us causality, impermanence, non-self, the interconnectedness of everything that exists. They teach us the universal, eternal laws of the universe, the Dharma. When we truly comprehend these teachings, we will then be able to eliminate our mistaken views and instead have right views and correct understanding. When we do not have such understanding, we will continue to wander aimlessly through countless lifetimes immersed in our own ignorance. We improve our understanding and practice the teachings within the Sangha with the support of good friends on the path, we strive to attain purity of mind and to live lives of harmony. The pure mind is the mind without wandering thoughts and discriminations. It has no worries, attachments, craving, or aversions. To live lives of harmony is to be gentle and caring in our thoughts and behavior. We express our gratitude to the three jewels by endeavoring to practice as the Buddhas have taught us. How? By being content with the circumstances in which we find ourselves, by listening to what the other person is saying instead of being preoccupied with our own self-interest, by deeply empathizing with the pain and suffering and disappointment in the lives of those we encounter, by awakening to correct views and understanding, attaining purity of mind, and living in harmony with all beings. In this way, we will begin to repay our immense debt to the three jewels. Second, we should be grateful to our parents. Many of us are, or have been, fortunate enough to have loving parents who tried their very best for us. Others, unfortunately, have or have had parents who were less than ideal, or perhaps even abusive. As Buddhists, we believe that we choose our parents because of a karmic connection. After our last death and before our next birth, we are plunged into darkness and raw emotions. In that overwhelming confusion, we are drawn to our parents as if they were a tiny beacon of light piercing the darkness. There are 4 reasons we are born to our parents: to repay a kindness, to have kindness repaid, to repay a debt, or to extract repayment of a debt. The child who is well behaved when young and thoughtful and loving when grown, and who affectionately tends to the parents' needs and wishes, is repaying past kindness. The parent who tenderly cares for the infant, who does everything he or she can to provide for the growing child's physical and emotional needs, is repaying kindness to the child. The unselfish care of both the attentive child and the caring parents in these 2 examples is naturally and freely given. The attention and nurturing continue as long as the kindness from an earlier lifetime is yet to be repaid, the thoughtfulness yet to be returned. On the other hand, the child who owes a debt to the parent may well spend a lifetime trying to please or provide for the parent, although the child's efforts may be ignored or even derided, the child will continue to repay the debt that he or she owes from an earlier lifetime. The debt may be financial, physical effort, or it may take other forms. The child who comes to exact repayment of a debt may cause the parent endless worry and pain by being disobedient, demanding, or unmoved by the parent's needs. They may frequently fall ill or have an ongoing medical condition and need much attention and care from the parent. Regardless of the reason we are born to our parents, and regardless of their treatment of us, we still owe our parents an immense debt of gratitude. Even if our parents did nothing else for us, and very few fall into this category, at the very least, they provided us with a physical opportunity to be born. For 9 months, our mothers carried and nurtured us until we reached the time of birth. Then they underwent many hours of pain to bring us safely into this world. For many of us, our parents looked after us for years, sacrificing their personal comfort so we might have better lives than they did. But even if all our parents did was to give us our body and thus our life, we still cannot repay our debt of gratitude to them. Without them, we would not be here tonight, striving to learn how to be more compassionate, altruistic beings. So whatever the reason we were born to our parents, whatever the circumstances we grew up in, however we feel about our parents, our debt to them is immeasurable. But our debt too, and appreciation of how much our parents have done for us, do not end there. In the Brahmanet Sutra, the Buddha said we should always bear in mind that throughout all time, all male beings have been my father. All female beings have been my mother. Ideally, we are to regard all beings in the same respectful manner in which we regard our current parents. If our parents of this lifetime are no longer alive, we can still try to repay our debt to them by respectfully regarding others as our parents and caring for them as if they were our current parents. How? Act toward your parents as if every day is Mother's Day or Father's Day. Help all beings to feel cherished and safe in your presence. Say thank you at every opportunity. If we are deeply appreciative to our parents for this opportunity to learn and grow, deeply appreciative to every parent of every lifetime who has wanted the very best for us, we will be able to feel gratitude to all beings. Third, we should be grateful to our teachers, those who have gone before us on the path to awakening. Until we reach a higher level of awakening, we will continue to act out of ignorance and delusion, mistaking right for wrong and wrong for right. If we are fortunate enough to have good teachers, he or she will guide us along the path. A good teacher will understand who we are and what we are capable of. This will enable our teachers to wisely guide us. Like the Buddhas, they will not give up on us when we fail to do all we should. But to find our good teacher, we need the right conditions. If the conditions have not yet matured, we may drive up and down every street in the town where we have heard a certain teacher lives, but drive past the one street where that teacher is. On the other hand, when conditions are right, we will naturally meet our teacher. A few years ago, when I was in Lawrence, Kansas, in the United States, a man who was returning some books to the library saw the poster for my talk. Amazed, he went up to one of the organizers and said that he had wanted to take the 3 refuges, but he did not know any monastics. After the talk, at his request, I served as the witness in his ceremony of taking the 3 refuges. He was very moved and deeply grateful. His conditions to follow the Buddhist path had matured. He had never expected to walk into the public library and find a Buddhist nun. In the same manner, when our conditions are right, we will encounter our teacher. If we have not yet found our teacher, we need to plant the causes to do so. Helping and caring for others, studying and practicing our chosen Buddhist method, and having the wish to benefit all beings will all help to plant good seeds, which will mature into good conditions. We will instinctively know when we have found our teacher. This realization will occur in our prajna wisdom, our intuitive wisdom that is already deep within us. If we are fortunate enough to find our teacher, we will be able to learn quickly from him or her. We will have confidence in and happily follow what he or she teaches. If we are not yet fortunate to have found our teacher, we can use the teachings in the sutras, the teachings of the Buddha, as our teacher. We respectfully call Sakyamuni Buddha our original teacher. Original means that within our current age, Sakyamuni Buddha is our historical Buddha. He is by no means the first and only Buddha, as there have been infinite Buddhas before him, and there will be infinite Buddhas in the future. The teachings in the sutras flowed from the true nature of Sakyamuni Buddha. This true nature is the same true nature of all Buddhas, of all beings. Such teachings are eternal. By practicing what we are taught, we will show our gratitude to our teachers. How? Let go of greed and craving. We only need enough money to be safe and healthy and to meet our responsibilities. Let go of anger and frustration. We do not have to act out of our negative habits by shouting at our children or the person who is not doing as we wish. Let go of ignorance and delusion. Remember that the person next to you only wants what you want: to be happy and free of worry. We do not need influence or wealth to be better people. We need goodwill, compassion, equanimity, and gratitude. Fourth, we should have appreciation for and be grateful to all beings. Everyone and everything is interconnected. Nothing exists on its own. As children, our family supported us, and our friends looked after us. As we grew up, we went to schools built by the communities we lived in. Then, as now, our country protected us through the armed forces and state and local police. Living in a country with the freedom to choose our faith tradition, our standard for ethical living, we are able to not merely survive, but to grow spiritually and emotionally. This building that we are in came about through the hard work of many people. Each of us has been able to contribute to our meeting tonight and learning from one another today, because we are supported by others, perhaps financially, perhaps emotionally. These people in turn were supported through the efforts of countless other people. We in turn support those we know and care for. The food that sustains us all was produced and transported by many other people. The cars we drive, the roads we drove on to get here, were made by many other people. This interconnectivity goes on and on and on. Understanding that we cannot live solely on our own, that no man is an island. We will begin to develop a sense of gratitude to all the infinite beings who have helped us to live better, more comfortable lives, more meaningful lives. But what of those who have harmed us? How can we feel grateful to them? Ideally, we should be grateful to those who have harmed us too, not just those we like and who directly or indirectly care for us. We reap what we sow. Our lives today are what we made them through our past karmas of thoughts, words, and actions. There is no one else to blame when we experience unpleasant circumstances. Those who have harmed us are simply bringing us the consequences of our own past karmas. We can do, as we have so often done, complain and become angry. Or we can instead choose to understand what is happening and accept that we have a karmic debt to repay. Gradually, we will be able to feel grateful even to those who harm us. Those who harm us provide us with an opportunity to repay a debt that we incurred. If we can have appreciation and gratitude for the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, for our parents, for our teachers, and for all beings, we will be grateful for everything that happens to us, good or bad. Increasing goodness and repaying the harm that we have done will assure us of having happier lives in the future. With goodwill, compassion, equanimity, and gratitude, we will pervade the universe with goodness, abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from ill will, free from hostility. Our minds will remain calm. Our hearts will be content. We will be at great ease with all that we encounter. Looking inward, we will touch our Buddha nature. And finally, we will dwell in peace. Amitabha. Please repeat the dedication of merit after me. May the merits and virtues accrued from this work adorn the Buddha's pure land, repay the four kindnesses above, and relieve the sufferings of those in the three realms below. May all those who see or hear of this bring forth the heart of compassion and understanding. And at the end of this life, be born together in the land of ultimate bliss. Namo Amitabha.
三宝弟子等，愿以此功德，回向病者，Evelyn Blender， 减轻他多生今生三业障，众业轻受，轻业平安，解冤解决，离苦得乐，破迷开悟，发菩提心，一向专念，阿弥陀佛，同生净土，同源种子，
同源种子。
南无阿弥陀佛。
南无阿弥陀佛。
一切法师。阿弥陀佛。恭送法师回寮。阿弥陀佛。